Hello everyone, I'm OP Tank bringing you another Neverwinter video. My apologies for the delay on getting these videos out. Unfortunately, life tends to interfere. But I'm back. Here we are bringing you another build video. And today we are going to be covering over the tank side of Paladin, or somewhat the tank side of Paladin. Well, there's lots of ways that you could build a tank. And depending on how you want to play it, is going to determine your gear, your stats, the whole shit and caboodle. So, without further ado, well, actually, I'll include timestamps in the description of the video so you can quickly jump to the parts that you want, because this is going to be a long video, I believe, as per usual. Yay. Sorry, everyone. So just grab your blankets and your pillows or a lot of caffeine, and we're going to get right into it, starting with races and ability scores. Here we go. Ability scores. So how you decide on your ability scores is going to determine on your play style. So as a tank, one of the most important things you're probably going to want is HP. Pretty straightforward. You need HP in order to survive those hits. So, Con is an excellent choice. So not only are you going to get hit points from it, you're also going to get action point gain. So it's going to increase the amount of times that you're able to spam your dailies, which is quite beneficial, because they offer some nice either damage or, as a tank, some nice mitigation. Your other choices is up to you depending on your playstyle. So there is Strength, which increases your stamina regeneration, which is phenomenal, because when you hold up your shield, your stamina is based on your HP, and how fast that stamina comes back is going to be based on your regeneration for stamina. So having more regen for stamina is going to make it so you can hold your shield up even more. So this is an excellent choice. Other choices, there's Dexterity. Oh, actually, I should probably mention, there's also a physical damage boost. Unfortunately, all your abilities are radiant based, so it is magical damage, so that falls under intelligence. So you're not actually getting any additional damage, which kind of sucks. Your other options is Dexterity. It's going to give you some move speed, which is nice. Allows you to stay out in front of your party so you can tank. There's also Crit Severity in here. Now, you're probably wondering, why would you want Crit Severity? You're a tank, shouldn't be doing damage. Well, they've changed up on how threats pretty much working now. There's still some moves that put you straight to the top of their threat list, but now you actually have to dish out some good damage multiplied by your threat generator in order to determine if you are actually going to be on top of the threat list. So that way you're able to maintain threat with your DPS still DPSing. So you might want some Crit Severity to help out, dish out that little extra damage. That way when it gets multiplied with your threat generation, it puts you at the top. It's just an idea. You don't need to do this. Another one that you can put it into is Intelligence. There's a control bonus, which is nice, but main reason is the magical damage boost. All of our abilities are radiant based, so this is going to increase your overall damage, which is nice. It's going to help out in order to up your damage, so that when multiplied by your threat generation again, it should put you at the top of the threat list. But don't worry, with the way that the threat generation is on Paladin, you should have no problem. Shouldn't need the Crit Severity or the Intelligence, or the magic damage bonus, I should say. So, but the options are still there. Wisdom, you got Control Resist and Outgoing Healing. Neither are applicable for a tank, so we could pretty much just skip over this one. But it's an option if you want to put it in there. And then you have Charisma. There's the Companion Influence, which is going to increase your stats. base from your companion. This is actually a small amount, so it's not actually recommended. Plus, there's recharge speed, but again, it's such a small amount. 6% on a 20-second cooldown is not going to do much at all. So, this is not overly an important one, but it is an option. You are going to get a little bit of extra stats. It's not going to be a whole lot, but again, choice is up to you. I would recommend stamina regeneration from the strength, and then your maximum hit points and AP gain from con. But again, completely up to you how you decide to build your tank. So those are your options available to you for your stats. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about race. So I'm mainly going to focus on con and strength, but you'll have to decide what class or race. Ooh, sorry. I just did the Paladin video. I'm a little tongue-tied right now. So you have to decide which race works for you. So you've got your standard, your metallic Dragonborn, and your Dragonborn are, of course, going to be your two best races. But again, they're locked behind paywalls. So if you are going straight free to play, there is human, which is decent. I mean, you get +3 to your choice of any ability score. So you can put it 3 in the con, 3 in the strength, you name it. And they come with versatile defense, which you gain 250 points to all your ratings, offensive and defensive stats. That's not a whole lot, especially when we're up to, 60, 70,000 for hitting our caps and stuff like that. So it's not that great, but it is an option. There is Dwarf. Dwarf will give you +2 to con and either +2 to strength or wisdom. They also have standard ground, so you have 20% increased resistance effects that knock and push you around. So that's quite handy as a tank. And you also have cast iron, so you gain a bonus to 2,000 to defense, which is quite nice as a tank. So Dwarf is a good choice. There is half elf if you want to go into like Dex with crit severity, and then there's like Tiefling if you want charisma with con and stuff like that. But really, out of those, you're kind of aiming towards Dwarf or Human. And if you have Dragonborn or Metallic, those, of course, going to be your best. So, let's move on to stats. So, stats for a tank. Well, almost every stat is important. Actually, every stat is pretty much important for a tank. Because not only does this tank want to hit the caps on all their defensive stats, you also want to hit a couple caps on your offensive stats and have the power and HP to back it up. Because, once again, you need to dish out some damage in order to be multiplied with your threat modifier to be put at the top of the threat list to do your job. So you do need to at least have armor pen and accuracy up there. Now, you shouldn't have any issues getting armor pen and crit strike to hit their caps. Just from gear alone, it should put you up there. Defense shouldn't also be a problem. You should be pretty straightforward. Should be able to get that with endgame gear. And I'm not talking like having like every single artifact and stuff. I'm just talking like pick up the new gear that you get from Master Expeditions and stuff. That's basically the stuff you can do the moment you hit level 80. But yeah, you're going to want armor pen. You're going to want accuracy. You're going to want your defense. Some crit avoidance is very good. And deflect is very handy. You're not going to need to worry about combat advantage. Everything's going to be focused on you. So you can throw combat advantage out the window. Awareness is nice because when you aggro a mob, they do tend to surround if you don't move around properly. If you are able to position yourself appropriately, you can just throw awareness out the window as well. You're going to want power, of course, because power is going to be based on how much damage you do. You want to be able to pump out at least some damage, so again, multiplied by your threat modifier to put you at the top of the threat list. I'm probably going to be repeating myself many times about that stuff. But yeah, you're going to want HP, you're going to want your arm pen, your crit strike, your defense, and your accuracy, and crit avoidance, and deflect. Basically, everything all the way down through here. You don't need to really worry about combat advantage and awareness. Alright, gear. Well, there's no perfect set of gear that I know of yet. There's nothing that's really going to turn you into an unstoppable machine. Basically, you're going to want anything that's going to balance out your stats, increase your damage. This one increases your defense. I'm still testing this out. I remember them reading on the forums that they said that even if you're at your cap for defense, you're only able to block 50% of the damage, but there are things that is going to increase your damage resistance. I'm not sure if this is going to be one of them. I think this just straight up does defense, so we'll have to see. More testing is required. Everything keeps changing. Some things work, some things don't. It's hard. Please bear with me. Yeah, so if you're not getting what you need for your stats, fill that up. Otherwise, go with some damage, go with some power, stuff like that. For your weapon set, Alabaster's a solid choice. It's easy for some people, downright impossible for others to get. Yeah, you get them from the Master Expeditions. You do 3 a day. Sometimes they're easy enough to get, sometimes not so much. But there's other options as well. Artifact equipment. So you got the Burnish set. So if you ever hit or healed for more than 50% of your maximum hit points in a single blow, your power and defense will be increased by 5% for 10 seconds. Good choice for a tank. Can't really complain too much. You're going to increase your power and your defense, making you look tanky and dish out some more damage, which is quite nice. There's the Mountaineering set. It's not out yet. So when you're 25% closer to your target, your defense increased by 5%. And when you're further than 25 from your target, your power is increased by 5%. Not sure what's the point of this one. You get both off of this, and you're always getting hit and healed because you are the tank. And your healer should be healing you. Again, Alabaster is a solid choice. Increases your power and crit strike. Pretty much you can stick with that one. And then, of course, you got your Watcher set, which increases your power, armor pen, crit, and defense for 1% every 5 seconds to a maximum of 5%. So basically the same thing. Good for those fights that last longer than 5 seconds. For boots, again, this is a decent one. Hell's Heel Crackers, because you are going to take 3% less damage. Downside is your move speed is going to be decreased by 15%. Coin toss here, you got to choose. But you can offset that movement speed decrease by using Gladiator's Guile from the mount insignia bonuses, so it's not too bad. As for your set, I'm running with the Electric Collar, so whenever I use a daily power, I will take 5% less damage, and will do 5% more damage to enemies for 10 seconds. The other sets are interesting. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are kind of, not really worth it. Reactive Collar. So basically it's the same thing, except it puts a little area on the ground, and it's going to basically give anyone who's standing in it 5,000 defense, 5,000 deflection, and decrease incoming damage by 5%. Doesn't stack with other ones, but I kind of like the electric collar sets. I just find it to be much better because not only are you decreasing the damage that you're receiving, you're also pumping up more damage, allowing you to generate more threat, so keeping you at the top of the boards. The Woven Vine set, same idea, except this one gives you awareness, combat advantage, and immune to control effects. Quite useful if you hate being controlled. But again, awareness, combat advantage, you don't need to worry about those whatsoever. And then the Wyvern set. So it's going to increase your power by 5,000, your armor pen by 5,000, and outgoing damage by 5%. Solid one for DPSers, not so much for tanking. But it does help out your DPSers if they're standing in that circle. Choice is up to you. And then, of course, you have this one, which when you use the daily power, you do 15% more damage to enemies that are not facing you for 10 seconds. Well, if you're doing your job as a tank, everything is facing you. You can throw that one out the window. Good for DPSing. So that was your sets. So on to rings. Rings, well, there's not a whole lot to pick from. I'm just running with the Spy Guild rings. They give me 2 offensive slots to pump up my power. Mainly because I'm too lazy, because I also have a heal build that requires a lot of power, and a DPS build that requires a lot of power too, so this just makes life easy. It comes with 2 offensive slots, and your daily powers do 3% more damage, so. As for the shirt and pants, I'm still running with the prize raise shirts. So whenever I crit with my powers, I have a 10% chance to reduce my encounter powers by 1 second, and then the action point, I'm running with the Ebony Stained one, which your stamina is over 75%, you take 3% less damage. Great until you hold up your shields, but every little bit helps. Saves my friggin' healer from having to do too much. As for artifacts, obviously you're going to need at least 1 artifact to match your set. Don't forget, you could run with some of the older sets too. Nothing's really coming to mind off the top of my head. That was really good. I mean, not for tanking. Yeah, sorry. Nothing's coming to mind. But you need at least 1 artifact to fill out your set. For me, of course, it's the ring. As for your other ones, I was going with maxing out my power in order to dish out a bit more damage so I can maintain threat. And then as for my active one, I like running with this one. This is a really good one. Helps out the party. Usually when I run into a group of enemies, I'll drop it and then I'll move beyond the enemies. Turn around and have the enemies face me, and then my allies can just hop into the zone, get healed, and reduce the damage that they are taking while they're beating the crap out of the enemies with combat advantage. So, really helpful in the second boss of Lair of the Mad Mage with the worm. So, solid one. You could run with a bunch of different ones. Some people like running with Sigil of the Cleric and stuff. You can run with Eye of the Giant to get more power. It also increases your defense, allows you to tank more. You can run with the Coated Knives in order to make the enemies deal less damage and take more damage. Lantern does the same thing basically, so there's a bunch of options out there for what primary artifact you like to run with. I just like the Sigil. Alright, so that was gear. Here we go. Enchantments. Alright, so in offensive slots, choice is yours, but you can either have Tenebrious enchantments or Radiant enchantments. Now, there's still a lot of debate going on between Tenebrious and Radiant. I'd recommend at least having the one Tenebrious enchantment at rank 15. So you're at least 8% chance to deal 8% of your current hit points, up to a maximum of 24. If you have 300,000 HP or more, you're always going to be capped on it. But you can also stack up multiple of your Tenebrious enchantments to get up to 30% chance for it to trigger. To deal 24,000 damage. Choice is really up to you. You'd have to decide, do you want to stack power or do you want the off chance of Tenebrious triggering to do it for you? And don't forget, Tenebrious cannot crit. So, keep that in mind. When you hit for 2,400, or 24,000, you're only dealing 24,000. So, I'd recommend Radiant, but Tenebrious is still an option. If they ever get rid of that stupid cap of 24,000, that will be the way to go. Defensive. HP, you want Radiance. You want to put Radiance in your defensive slots. That will probably be the way to go. You definitely want lots and lots of HP because, well, one, you're a tank, so you're going to need the HP, and two, your shield is based off of 50% of your HP, so you want Radiance. If you are lacking in your defensive and stuff, you can usually fill those out using your companions or your mount insignias. So I stick with HP. But again, choice is up to you. As for utility, well, you got sort of two options, really, and the way I see it, kind of only one. But you can use Darks for slightly more stats, and I mean slightly. They don't really do a whole lot putting in Darks. It's only like 1 to 2,000 more stats. And if you're running around with endgame gear, chances are your stats are fine. The big one is tactical enchantments. Because in a utility slot, they increase the incoming healing, which is phenomenal. Because as a tank, you're getting beat on left, right, and center, and your healer's trying to heal you. If you got tactical enchantments in your utility slot, you're just sucking up all that healing, which is phenomenal for the healer. Saves them from worrying about their divinity management to keep on healing you. So they can just drop a heal and boom, you're almost full. Hopefully, depending on the healer. So I would recommend tactical in your utility slots. I mean, third option, of course, you can always go with your standard, which is your Fey Touch Dragonhorn Quartermaster, just for the extra refinement and stuff. Choice is up to you. I would strongly recommend tactical, though. Makes your healer's job much easier. Those who play a healer understand it's a pain in the ass to heal a tank sometimes, so putting these on definitely will help. So, weapon enchant. For weapon, for a tank, your DPSers and your healers are probably going to be running with Vorpal, so it's probably an excellent idea for you to be running with Bronzewood. Bronzewood's great because you mark a target once every 20 seconds for 10 seconds, and a marked target will take additional damage from you and allies, and have minus 2,700 deflection. At max rank, it's 3,000, and they take 10% more damage. So this is a really nice one. You're usually striking everything, trying to maintain aggro when you're not turtling to reduce the incoming damage. So this is a really good one. I'd almost say it's pretty much the only one for the tanks because everybody else is running with Vorpal. in order to get more crit severity. So this is a solid one for tanks. As for your armor enchant, it seems like Eclipse is pretty much the way to go. It's one of the really good ones because when you're fighting, you're taking damage against your shield. The moment your stamina hits 20%, drops below 20%, your stamina is instantly refilled and doesn't deplete for 2 seconds. Now, it only occurs once every 60 seconds, but this is a solid one because when you're holding up your shield and you drop below that 20%, your stamina instantly refills. It is great. You're basically almost doubling your shield. So basically, you could double your HP. So basically, I have 1,000,000 HP when I'm holding up a shield. So that is an excellent one. Other options, of course, are Bark Shield. So Bark Shield is still a decent one. Now remember, ongoing damage is going to eat away at your charges, so it may be difficult to maintain stacks of this. And as a tank, the moment you start getting beat on, this is going to disappear real quick, and it takes 6 seconds to receive a charge. You're usually jumping between fight to fight fairly quickly. The option is still open. I would stick more with the Eclipse. There's also the Elven Battle enchantment, another solid one. Makes you more resistant to slow, mobilizes, disables, and stuns. And it helps with your stamina regen as well. So this is actually another excellent choice. And they have been reworking negation. So this is allow once per second when receiving damage. Each hit stacks a 1.4% increase to your damage resistance for 3 seconds. This effect can stack to a maximum of 10 times, so that's 14%. I believe if this gets upgraded, it goes up to 1.5%, so a total of 15%. And refreshes its duration with each new stack. Upon reaching 10 stacks, all damage resistance after 3 seconds is delayed. All stacks of damage resistance are consumed, and you heal yourself for 5% of your maximum hit points. I haven't tested this out. This seems promising. This is damage resistant, so it's not adding to your defense, which is already capped. Well, should be capped. So this could be quite beneficial. I haven't tested it out, but the option is there. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind. I am going to ask around, see if anyone's got one, and I am going to test it out to see if I do have a reduction, big enough reduction that it makes it worthwhile, and for the healing aspect as well. So those are your options for your armor enchants. As for... Nope, that's pretty much it. So, powers. Fun times. If you haven't fallen asleep yet, I'm impressed. So we're going to start off with Feats. Why? Because Feats are going to determine how you're going to play your character. So, first set of Feats. You got a choice between Sacred Shield. So Sacred Weapon now generates increased threat and restores stamina with each strike. Or Divine Reciprocation. Increased threat generated by Divine Touch. Whenever you target an ally with Divine Touch and not yourself, you heal yourself for 100% of the amount. I've debated about this, and I think in my personal opinion, there should be no healing on a tank. You have a healer designated for healing. Why the hell does a tank have healing aspects and have a feat friggin' slotted for it? Honestly, God, I don't have Divine Touch ever equipped. Ignore that here right now. I was experimenting with my builds before I decided to sit down and actually do a build guide. But yeah, if you can make this work for you, awesome. But I can't justify the divinity cost for some increased threat to heal. Like, I have a healer for that. That's the whole point of having a healer. But to each their own. Your choice is your choice. I went with Sacred Shield because I like running with Sacred Weapon. Uh, I got a nice little combo going with it, so I went with that one. But choice is up to you. Your next choice is a choice between Burning Vengeance. So Burning Light now deals up to 600 magnitude damage as your remaining stamina decreases. Damage no longer increases based on charge duration. Burning Light may now be charged indefinitely. While charging, you automatically block all attacks from the front as long as stamina remains. Or you have Baneful Strikes, so 5% chance that your at-will attacks will reduce the divinity cost of your next Bane to 0. And it lasts for 10 seconds. So, both of these are actually really good. Either one you choose is completely up to you. Bane is a nice power. It costs a lot of divinity. Does a decent magnitude. So it is up to you. I like running with Burning Light because I can run into a group, either Templar's Wrath, Vow, or something. And then I will sneak behind them and start charging up my Burning Light. You don't even need to charge it up because it automatically does 600 magnitude, no matter how long you charge it for. But you can hold it, charge it for as long as you want, and as long as you have stamina, you will block attacks from the front, which is phenomenal. And I just let it go, stuns everything, dishes out some nice damage, multiplied by my threat magnitude, puts me at the top of the list. It's quite nice. Your next choice is Justicar's Bulwark. So increase the amount of divinity that Justicar's charge may restore. And Divine Pursuit. So encounter powers which cost divinity now grant Divine Pursuit, causing at-will attacks to restore divinity. Either one of these is good. I went with Justicar's charge because if you're tanking properly, you are going to hold your shield up quite a lot. You're not going to be swinging your at-wills left, right, and center. But this is still a solid option. I believe this one does grant you slightly more divinity, but you are having your shield down for longer periods of time, which is not something you always want to do as a tank, because it really pisses off your healer when they have to constantly heal you and heal you and heal you. Trust me, I know. I got the healer build. It sucks. But it is a solid option. If you know you're not going to take a whole lot of damage at certain areas, yeah. This one, I believe, does generate slightly more divinity than Justicar's charge. So choice is yours, depending on how you want to do your Paladin. Your next choice, Shield of the Gods. So Divine Protector no longer redirects damage from the nearest ally, and instead nullifies most damage dealt to you. Lasts for 6 seconds, and it gives it a cooldown of 180 seconds, so 3 minutes. Which kind of sucks. And then there's Sheltering Light, so whenever you are healed, party members under the effects of your Shield of Faith are now healed for 50% of the value you are healed for. This is a nice one. Either one of these, depending on your playstyle, you drop this anytime you're healed. Everybody in your party is healed, because everybody's going to be under Shield of Faith when you decide to activate it. So that's a solid one. I like running with this one because if you're doing your job, you don't really need to worry about your party members being healed as long as they stay out of red. But Shield of the Gods is really good. Downside is it only lasts for 6 seconds and has a 3-minute cooldown. But you pop this, you basically turn into God mode, and you can do whatever you want. You can start swinging. You can activate every your abilities. Basically, turn this on, activate friggin' Sacred Weapon, and just go to town with Oath Strike, and just make sure that I stay on top of the board. And I can take all that damage. Gives me a chance to, with the Sacred Weapon, to increase my stamina with my attacks. So I can regen my stamina for 6 seconds. So that way, once this is over with, I just pop down my shield again. Boom, good to go. But both are solid choices depending on whichever one you choose will determine how often you proc which one. And then finally, you have a choice between Intimidating Presence. Divine Champion now greatly increases threat generation, but no longer automatically blocks attacks against you. And then you have Unyielding Champion. Divinity cost of Divine Champion is reduced by 10, and both Divine Champion and Divine Paladin now block up to 75% of your total maximum hit points. Either one, I went with the threat generation because I want to make sure I am keeping threat. To be completely honest with you, I barely hit tab. To be 100% honest with you, I keep forgetting it even exists. But both are solid options. I mean, this one reduces it by 10, so I think it's initially I think it's 60. No, that's Divine Paladin. Tab. There it is. Yeah, sorry. Ooh. Yeah, it's 60, so it drops it down to 50, and you have 1,000 divinity, so basically 20 seconds. So honestly, either one will work. So it's completely up to you. Again, I forget it even exists. Usually it's at the very end of the fight when like, oh yeah, I have a tab. But usually I save my divinity for Templar's Wrath and stuff. Or Smite. Because I'll show you why in a second. Class features. So, Paladin's a little unique in this regard, as Paladin has a couple of auras and a couple of non-auras, and you're only allowed to have one aura in effect at a time, or no auras. So we'll cover them over. I'll give you the goods and the bads of them. Aura protection. Increased deflect rate of self and nearby party members by 2%. Nobody cares about deflect rate. So, yeah, we can skip that one. Blessed Wanderer. Increased damage dealt by 5% whenever there's no party members nearby. You're in a party. Don't use this. Pretty straightforward. Composure. You regenerate divinity 10% faster. Solid choice. You're going to want your divinity because that's how you're going to be really pushing yourself to the top of threat lists constantly. So, solid choice. Aura of Wrath. Increase the critical rate of self and nearby party members by 2%. Again, everyone's going to have their crit strike all the way up there just from gear. No point in running with this one. Aura of Valor. Decreased threat generated by nearby party members by 5%. This is a solid one to have. This is going to help you out, keeping you up at the top of the threat list, even from your high DPSers, because you're able to reduce the threat generated by them. Divine Retribution. Increased damage dealt up to 5% as remaining stamina decreases. Not that great. I mean, it is a decent one to take. It is going to increase your overall damage as your stamina decreases, but you should have enough damage already to be able to maintain aggro. If not, you are going to be using your divinity in order to proc Templar's Wrath, Smite, stuff like that. Divine Challenger. Grants Smite the added effect of placing you at the top of the threat list of the target. This is a great one, so if you are thinking about running with Smite, just remember that the magnitude is going to decrease as your divinity decreases. So as you're lower on divinity, this does less damage, so it's not as effective. So it is nice to throw this on in order to make sure that when you do cast it, you are putting yourself at the top of the threat list. And then you have Aura of Vengeance. Deal damage to attackers whenever nearby party members take damage, 10 magnitude. I always thought about making a Thorns build. I have been experimenting left, right, and center. I've been trying new things. I have been adamant at trying to get a Thorns build to work. I can't find anything that is going to make it work. I'm doing like 10% damage compared to friggin' normal builds. So it's just not viable at this point, which sucks. For our mechanics, we of course got our block, which is we hold up our shield, we block incoming damage in front of us, and our block amount is 50% of our total HP. It's based off of our stamina for regen. So the more regen for stamina you got, the faster you're going to be able to get your shield back up and keep it up. Again, we have our tab mechanic, Divine Champion. So activating a Divine Champion doubles the effectiveness of your auras. So don't forget, if you grab this aura, you're decreasing the threat generated by nearby party members by 10%. If I ever remember to activate it. On 30 of you while draining divinity over time. Again, drain 60 divinity, 50 if you chose this particular feat. And you have control immunity. And that one also says that my actions generate more threat because of Intimidating Presence feat that I chose. Oath of Protection. If you decide to go tanking route, you're going to have increased threat generated and increase maximum hit points by 40%, and of course decrease damage dealt by 10%. We have Justicar's Charge, so whenever we're blocking attacks holding up our shield, we are going to regenerate divinity. So the more you get hit with your shield up, the more divinity you're going to earn back, which is phenomenal. Now there is a pool, so if you do too much at once, you won't get as much divinity. And then you have Divine Paladin, which once again, I don't know why they're still including this. I've never used it. Then again, I barely use the tab mechanic, so I can't really say much. But when Divine Champion is active, so your tab mechanic, so whenever that is active and you hold your shift key to raise your shield, you raise the Divine Barrier with your shield, absorbing damage up to 50% of your total maximum hit points. Damage taken away while blocking depletes your stamina. You may not have move or attack while under the effects of Divine Paladin, and your stamina does not regenerate. You're immune to most control effects. Decreased damage taken by self and allies in a co behind you by 10%. I'm not sure why your allies would be behind you instead of on the other side of the enemy, but you know, reasons. And heal self and ally and co behind you. Once again, not sure why we're healing as a tank or why your allies would be behind you. But that's just me, and I'm just a player. Alright, now we get into dailies. So we have 2 damaging dailies, well, technically 3. So we got Divine Judgment, which is a huge magnitude, 1500, just drops down on a single target. No longer has splash damage, so good if you want to drop it on a big bad. So the boss or in a mob group, there's usually at least one with the highest amount of HP. Good one to drop it on. Guaranteed to put you at the top of the threat list. Hit with that. We also have Radiant Charge. Deals radiant damage to all enemies in the path before you. It's got a good radius, good range. Does 600 magnitude and knocks down. Another solid one. Great for a little bit of control and to dish out some good magnitude damage. So that multiplied by your threat generator should keep you at the top of the threat list. The other one is Heroism. This one doesn't do straight up damage. This is just going to increase your damage. So this increases your maximum hit points by 20%, restores the amount increased, and increases damage dealt by 10% for 12 seconds. Why they decided to make this one a level 80 one, because this would have been a great one to have way back here while leveling. That's just my opinion, but this is a solid one. Gives you some hit points, heals you for it, and increases damage dealt, again helping you keep that threat. Choice is up to you. The other ones that we have are Shield of Faith. So decrease damage taken by self and nearby party members by 5%, and increase healing received by 10% for 10 seconds. Or Divine Protector. Nullifies most. Okay, this one got changed because I went with this particular feat. Otherwise, it would put a. It would choose the closest ally to you, put a bubble around them, and redirect all damage they would take to you. But since I chose that feat, it nullifies all damage dealt against me for 6 seconds with a 3-minute cooldown. If you would have chose the Sheltering Light, it would have stated on this that whenever you're healed, all party members under the effects of Shield of Faith would be healed as well. So I usually have both those slotted. I usually don't need to have the damaging one slotted. I can usually either pump out enough damage multiplied by my threat modifier to keep me in the top of the list, or again, I got my Templar's Wrath for increased threat. I got my Smite to put me at the top of the list if I got Divine Challenger on, and I got Vow of Enmity to place me at the top of the threat list regardless of damage. So plus this does a radius, so it's solid. So encounters. So what encounters will you be using? Well, that's completely up to you, but we'll cover them over. So Burning Light. Burning Light deals radiant damage to all enemies nearby. Magnitude decreases as remaining stamina increases. Yay! So magnitude is 300 to 600. Added effect gives a stun, duration of 3 seconds. And you automatically block all attacks from the front as long as stamina remains. Stamina does not regenerate while charging. So, again, one of the things I like to do is when I go into a fight, I'll activate my artifact to drop that Sigil of the Paladin area on the ground for my allies. I'll move back behind the enemies after I Templar's Wrath them, and then I will start charging this up. This will allow me to block incoming damage from the front, from the enemies, and then once my enemies start beating on them, I'll release it, get a good amount of damage out. Because the less stamina I have, the more damage it's going to do. And hopefully keep aggro. Your next choice is Sacred Weapon. So you deal additional radiant damage after most attacks, so it gives you additional 40 magnitude on your attacks. Your attacks also restore stamina and increase threat for 10 seconds. I like running with this one because I like the increased threat, because it adds to my threat modifier. And my attacks restore stamina. So I also like that one because it restores stamina and it's very important to keep my shield up. I like combining that with Oath Strike, since that also increases threat. And you hit multiple enemies, so I'm basically making sure they're always focused on me. Next up is Divine Touch. So Divine Touch costs 220 Divinity out of your pool of 1,000. And heal magnitude of 500 for the allies at the target location, including yourself. Again, I don't know why there is a heal on a tank build. You're not really supposed to be healing. I can understand maybe a first aid ability to quickly, repair some damage that you took, but you have a designated healer for healing. But, of course, it is an option, as you can see. So if you want to run with that, absolutely. Don't forget there is a feat that can increase threat generation from it. And if you heal allies with not yourself, you'll heal yourself for 100% of the amount. Then we have Smite. Smite is an excellent power, but unfortunately its magnitude decreases as your divinity decreases. So the less divinity you have, the less damage it does. But main reason we use it is in combination with Divine Challenger. So grant Smite the added effect to place you atop of the threat list. So that is a solid option combo. Next up is Bane. So you deal radiant damage to enemies at a target location. Costs 300 Divinity, which is almost a third of our Divinity pool. Now, you can pick Baneful Strikes, which you have a 5% chance while attacking with your at-wills to reduce the divinity cost of your Bane. to 0. So that is an option if you like to go that route. I didn't. There's other things I could use my divinity for, and I'm not always swinging my at wills because you only have a 1 in 20 chance of getting it. It's 5%, so it takes 20 strikes for it to trigger. Technically, the odds are there. That is how the odds are. Templar's Wrath. This is one I like to have slotted. This is a good one, in my opinion. It does cost 300 divinity, which is basically a third of your divinity pool. But you do radiant damage to all nearby enemies. It's got a nice radius. Kind of a bit low on the magnitude in my opinion, but it also has increased threat. You go in, you drop this down, basically everything's going to be pretty much looking at you. Vow. Once again, we have Vow, another decent one. Deals radiant damage to target nearby enemies, only 100 magnitude, but that's okay. It's got a range of 80 and a radius of 20, so you're going to hit multiple enemies with this. But the magnitude doesn't really matter because you're placing yourself at the top of the threat list regardless. So you target an enemy in the middle of a group, they're all going to be looking at you. It is great. Absolution. So it's got a bit of a long cooldown for its duration, but it does decrease damage taken by 20%. If you find that you are in a difficult area and you're taking a lot of damage, your shield keeps getting depleted because your stamina is not regenerating fast enough due to the amount of damage you're taking, Absolution can definitely help decrease that incoming damage by 20%. I don't usually run with this. I usually have enough HP or stamina to hold up my shield in order to offset it, but this is a solid option if you do find that you are taking a lot of damage and your healer doesn't have the divinity to keep up with all the heals. You can always take this one. Again, only lasts for 8 seconds with a 22.6 second cooldown, but it is something. Binding Oath. So, a little sad what happened to Binding Oath in Mod 16 because that used to be my go-to for threat generation. But this is what it is now. So, dealing radiant damage to attackers whenever you take damage. Basically, it's... I was including this in my makeshift Thorns build that never worked out, but you deal 50 magnitude every time you get hit. Lasts for 12 seconds, so there's about a 10-second downtime. It does restore stamina, which is quite nice, but I don't usually use it. But yeah, you basically put a bubble around you, so whenever you get attacked, you're dishing out 50 magnitude. So you're looking at 2,000 damage. It's not terrible, but again, there's just better ones to choose from. And then you have Relentless Avenger. It's got a short cooldown. Well, I say short, it's still pretty long, but it's got a short cooldown. So you lunge at a target dealing radiant damage, cannot be executed while rooted. It's got a magnitude of 460. It's quite nice. It's great for getting into combat. I mean, it's got a range of 60 right now, so it's a great way. Just Relentless Avenger in, Templar's Wrath, going behind people, start holding friggin' Burning Light, or friggin' hit him with a Bane, you name it. This is a solid one to have, especially if you want to be first into a fight. So, your at-wills. So you have Valorious Strike, does 45 magnitude, 35 second cast time. You got Radiant Strike, which 55 second cast time at 25 magnitude, but it does do an area damage, so hitting multiple targets, which is kind of nice. There's Oath Strike, which it's got a cast time of 3 seconds, deals 20 magnitude, but it does a beautiful arc which hits multiple enemies and it increases threat. I like this one. This is great for mobs. I'll just sit there and wail on them left, right, and center. And then I got Shielding Strike, single target, 45 magnitude, 3-second cast time, and restores stamina when used. So I use this one when my stamina starts getting really low and I don't need the additional threat generation and stuff. Or if I'm against a boss, this is a solid one as well to get my stamina back. Otherwise, I'll go with the O Strike. So, those have been powers. Boons. So, in the guild, you're going to want power. Because again, more damage you do, times that by your threat modifier, higher chance to put you at the top of the threat list. You're probably going to want to go with HP here, because once again, you're tank. You're going to want lots of HP, not just for your HP pool, but it's also 50% of your HP pool becomes your shield. So more HP you have, the better. If you needed your defense capped, you could also go with that. I wouldn't worry about awareness. I would just stick with hit points. For utility, you have a choice between Revive Sickness or Healing Potions. I would recommend Revive Sickness. I was testing this out just to see if their Healing Potions were decent enough. Not overly. Not overly. Too many hit points to heal. So, stick with Stones of Health and a healer. So, Revive Sickness is the way to go in my opinion. Okay, so, a little bit different. I was experimenting, so there's two ways of doing this. Main thing is you're going to go with HP here, regardless. Then, you have a choice. You can go with power, which I would recommend. And then grab your Marathon Runner for increased move speed. And you can grab some Companion Influence as well. So it gives you an extra 10% Companion Influence. Gives you a little bit more stats. Nothing huge. And I would definitely go with these guys for the damage reduction and damage per. So every boon you put in is 1% damage to and damage against resist from like cultists, demons, dinosaurs, and undead. If you don't want to do that, I'd still recommend at least getting the undead. There's a lot of undead in this game. And that extra damage resistance from them is nice. Plus you're doing more damage to them, which is even nicer. So, if you have the boons, definitely go with power, HP, these guys, and then these two. For up here, a couple of choices. So you got incoming healing. This is a nice one to have because as a tank, you have a large HP pool. So when enemies start biting into that HP pool, it becomes increasingly difficult for your healer to keep you healthy because you have such a large HP pool. So this is a good option. There's also crit severity. If, again, you are going in that particular route to pump out a little extra damage in order to ensure that you're constantly at the top of the threat list. But again, we have a whole bunch of abilities that automatically put us at the top. You don't always have to worry about the crit severity, so you could probably think about skipping this one, but again, it's up to you. There's stamina regen. Again, can't go wrong with it. You want that stamina regen. You're going to be taking a lot of damage against your shield, so the faster it comes back, the better. There's outgoing healing, completely non-existent. Well, sorry, it's not non-existent. We do have a healing spell. So, I guess you could consider this. Okay, let's be honest. You're not going to consider this. Let's just move on. Increased action point gain. This is another solid one to get. If you didn't want the stamina regen or the healing bonus or something, you can grab action point gain. Being able to spam your dailies more often is just awesome. There's recovery speed. Again, this is only going to be 4%. It's not going to do a whole lot. It's only going to knock off like 0.3 of a second from your cooldowns and stuff. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, it's not even going to affect your mount combat power or your artifact. It's just going to affect your your encounters. So I wouldn't recommend picking this one. Control bonus, we're not really controlling. We do have some minor stuns and stuff, but again, we're there just to tank. So, but the option is available. As for your master boons, these two require a kill in order to be triggered. Well, a chance to be triggered. These ones require encounter to be triggered. These ones at wills, but you have to be below 30%, so you can throw those out the window. And these ones are about healing, so we'll throw those four out. No real point in having these two per se. So really you have a choice between this one, which is a chance on encounter use to decrease target's awareness by 500 per rank for 10 seconds. Do an additional attack equal to 120% of your weapon's damage plus 10% per rank. And increase your action point gain by 5% per rank for 10 seconds. Or you have this one, which chance on encounter use to do the following for 15 seconds. Decrease the target's armor pen by 500 per rank. Decrease target's accuracy by 250 per rank. And mirrors all incoming damage back to the attacker. The reason why we picked this one is for that bottom one. It does mirror back all that damage coming back. There is a cooldown on this. I think it's 10-second cooldown. I can't remember what it was on the forums. I remember reading. But there is a cooldown on this, so it doesn't constantly trigger. But you're able to mirror incoming damage back to the attacker. It's just a little something. It's pretty much the best thing out of here because you probably won't be really killing anything. But I mean, you could go with it if you wanted to. Choice is up to you. I just recommend between these two, probably this one. And don't even think about using Atwell's one. If they got rid of that health below 30%, yeah, there'd be something to consider. But yeah, go with those. And these ones are healers, so unless your tank is going to become a healer, in which case you should have went Paladin, there's like no point in going for those. So, Boons. Yay. Alright, now the fun stuff. Companions. This is going to be... Oh, God, I don't even know. This is rough. Alright, so, companions. Every companion is going to have rune stones, bonding rune stones. You want 3 of them. Highest rank you can get. Equipment, well, you're going to get your equipment for running through the Undermountain. You're going to want to use those. Helps round off. Use your gear. And you're going to use whatever runestones you want in them in order to hit whatever stats you need. So when it comes down to these guys, it's really going to depend on you. Do you need more power? Do you need more combat advantage? Well, not combat advantage. Crit avoidance. Do you need more defense? Stuff like that is really going to depend on where your stats are right now. To determine which one of these you're going to end up picking. 2 main ones, if you're already at your stats, are going to be an increased power or an increase to crit severity. You can also include ones that are going to put debuffs on enemies, so lower their awareness, defense, stuff like that. That is also a solid option, but chances are everyone's going to have enough crit and armor pen and stuff like that to break through. So it's really up to you what you choose here. For your offensive, wow, why do I have that one selected? Yeah, right, I was experimenting. You don't really need that one. Pretty much you want anything that's going to help you tank. There's actually not a whole lot to really help you tank. I mean, you could pick ones that are like incoming healing bonus to help out your healer, or power, or HP. Anything like that is going to help you. HP would be solid choice, or power. It's completely up to you. Same with your defensive slots. Anything that's going to help round off your stats or increase your power or HP or generate threat. Because this one is your utility slot. I would recommend at least getting the Dread Warrior because 10% on damage taken to become enraged, increasing threat generation by 10% for 10 seconds. You're always getting hit. Chances are this is going to proc. So this is a solid one. So either balance out your stats with whatever companions you got available, increase your power, increase your HP, or increase your incoming healing. I can't sit down and tell you exactly this is the companion you need type thing. It's one of those gray areas. It's really dependent on where you're currently at with your gear, where you're currently at with your enchantments, where you're currently at with your friggin' mountain insignias, stuff like that. Where you're currently at with your bonding rune stones, your companion gear, your rune stones, your companions themselves, if they're legendary or not. It's all stat dependent, so what you choose here, just use it to balance. But I would strongly recommend getting the Dread Warrior for this utility. This is a nice one. As for your summon companion, everyone's talking about the Bullet Pup. Main reason, it gives you additional combat advantage, defense, and power share. That's nice. I'm running with the Black Dragon Ion Stone. Gives me additional to hit points, crit avoidance, and defense. So I like that one. You're going to want a augment companion as the companion you run with. It will never die. You'll always have those stats. Plus you get additional stats since it's an augment, since they don't attack, which is phenomenal. And don't forget, you also want to get as close to your 15% bolster, giving you additional stats and stuff. So what you run with is up to you. I'd recommend augment, solid choice. Basically any augment is going to give you what you need, and find one that's in a good bolster amount. Fortunately, I can't really go into too much more detail about companions because it's really all on a case-by-case scenario. So, mounts, I guess. Alright, mounts. So, if you have a legendary, was it Triceratops, I believe it was, you might want to throw on the 50,000 maximum hit points. Be a solid choice. Again, the more hit points you have, the better, because you're going to have longer survivability, and your shield's going to last longer. So I would recommend going with the hit points here. If not, you can always go with whatever you got. I mean, power, if you got it. But I would recommend hit points. You don't even need the legendary one. You can get the epic one that's going to give you 25,000. So, but I would recommend at least getting hit points in here. As for the your combat power, if you have a legendary mount, well, regardless of whichever one you have, use whichever one you got. If you have multiple to choose from, you can run with the T-Rex, which is kind of nice. You can lower the defense by 10% by 10 seconds, but most people be already to punch through that. But again, there is debuffs and stuff that can happen to the party, so T-Rex is still a solid choice. Basically, any whatever you got. I'm running with T-Rex. Best one to have is the Swift Golden Lion, though. That is a great one for the party. Adds a lot to defense and protection. That is a solid choice. Stables. Alright. Mountain insignias. Well, you're pretty much going to want power. Or use whatever you got, basically. help round off your stats with them too. As for your insignia bonuses, Gladiator Guile, I would recommend getting this, mainly because I ended up grabbing the Hell's Heel Cracker, so my speed is a little bit reduced. So this definitely helps with that. Plus, if my stamina is below 25%, I gain stamina regeneration, which is phenomenal. Helps me get my stamina back faster. You have a lot of couple of choices here. I mean, you can go with the good old standard, Artificer's Persuasion and stuff like that. I went with Barbarian's Revelry, Oppressor's Reprieve, Survivor's Blessing, and Knight's Rebuke, because all of these heal me. So on a crit, I'm going to heal myself. If I get stunned, knocked, or immobilized, I'm going to heal myself. And when I deflect an attack, I'm going to heal myself. And when I get receive combat advantage damage, I'm going to heal myself. This is basically going to help out my healer. So when I'm getting knocked around and I don't got my shield up, or if I crit them, or if I deflect an attack, I'm going to be healing myself so my healer doesn't have to worry 24/7 about what the hell I'm doing. And always having to friggin' waste divinity on me. But again, you can go with the whole standard Cavalry's Warning, Artificer's Persuasion, Assassin's Covenant, Shepherd's Devotion. The choice is up to you on what you would prefer to run. This is sort of the decision I made to run with this. Now, I am still trying new things to determine what's good, what's bad, that stuff. But yeah, so that was mounts. Well, I hope you enjoyed this guide. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, queries, please throw them down in the chat below. And if you notice anything was wrong or anything needs to be updated, please let me know as well. I will pin my comment to the top in the whatever you call that chat below, so I can include anything that was wrong or any new changes that I would recommend in there, so you can definitely have a quick read through. That would be an excellent idea. So thank you again. If you've managed to stay this long with me, I am impressed. But thank you again. And again, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, queries, please throw them down in the chat. I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Shouldn't be sailing anytime soon, so it should only take me about a day or two. So thank you again, and I wish you all the very best.